there's wildlife out there that knows that you're there, even if you don't know that they're there.
You needed Renata's glockenspiel there to be banging on. Well,
or flugelhorn.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Greens and Blues Sports Center podcast. This episode, Zach and I continue our conversation with the lovely John and Renata Collard, the climbing Collards. You
guys are hiking all the time. At what point do you guys decide? It sounds like John had the list of the 14ers in mind for sure.
Yeah.
And Renata's doing all those. At what point do you guys decide to do the more tasking list, which is the 13ers? When do you get it in your head? We're going to finish those as well.
2003 is where I had advanced to a point where I can do the third class and hire more difficult 14ers like Capitol Peak and stuff. Mm-hmm. We finished the 14ers in 2006, 2007.
You know, those mountains was like capital was, well, I think some mountains like require attention, like the range.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. The range is not like really climbing or scrambling, but it's kind of like a knife edge that is different.
We get to the trailhead and there's this guy that just comes back to the trailhead, and Renata and I have our helmets strapped to our packs, and the guy says, "You don't need helmets for Capitol Peak." And I was like, well, I didn't say anything, but I was just like, that's a strange comment, because I understand that you can die, so many different ways on Capitol Peak, but a helmet sometimes for people like me and Renata, when we're doing something third class or harder, even if you're not going to hit your head on a rock, it's there for psychological purposes almost.
Sure.
Yeah. And it feels comfortable on our heads. So we don't mind it. Going back to, so we had been climbing 12ers, 13ers, kind of whatever was logistically available. We were pursuing the centennials and then the bicentennials slowly whenever there's an opportunity to do a technical climb. So like in the centennials, we failed on like Dallas Peak like 3 times because of weather and stuff before we succeeded, so yeah, Tea Kettle and Jagged required a couple of times. And then bicentennials, we ended up having opportunities for Coxcomb and Peak 15. Yeah. And so every time.
Yeah, jumping on opportunities. Like you can imagine, like it was very valuable to take a week of vacations and dedicated to climbing and not succeed. So it would be like very painful to go like Jagged.
And so it wasn't until like COVID time. So Renata and I were doing our kind of like 2020 COVID isolation hikes or whatever, in the summer. Renata's birthday is in September, and I asked her what she wanted to have for her birthday during COVID year, and she said she wants to climb Lizard Head Peak. And my jaw just about dropped to the floor. I was just like, how are we going to pull that off? Because that to me was like the underlying reason why we would never finish the 13ers, So 2020, Renata.
Because the easiest route on that is what, a 5.7 or 5.8?
5.8, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so Renata pulls this rabbit out of the hat. We're going to try doing something that is way beyond either of our abilities, and we weren't we don't lead climb, and we were not about to ask our lead climbing friends to like, hey, you want to like pull us up this,
you want to just drag me up a mountain,
drag me up this like death-defying climb that we had no business being on. And a couple of our friends that have finished the 13ers gave us some great suggestions, that they knew this great guide that works for Mountain Trip and Telluride, and gave us their names. And I was like, okay, I highly recommended this person. This person has led Lizard Head, say like once a year for the last 10 years or something like that. And so when we made the phone call, we were pleasantly surprised to find that they were actually available, because nobody's like climbing during COVID season. Pick your date, and the price was reasonable. It was like, okay, we're signed up for climbing Lizard Head. like Renata said, it ended up being just an amazing experience. The guy was internationally certified.
Yeah, it was very helping and fun. You learn a lot of stories during the climb. And
I bet.
Yeah, whenever you're climbing with someone who's above your ability, I mean, just the stories. I mean, like we're telling you our fun stories, but like there's so many stories that blow our minds also from other people. So it was really a great experience. And the guy was like, hey, you know, like if you're struggling going up, you know, on the first pitch, don't hesitate to yank on the gear, you know? I mean, like if you have to do a little bit of that in order to make the move or whatever, just do it, you know? And I confess, I had to do that in a couple of places. I believe
that's why somebody else does lead, right? So you can do that.
Exactly. You know, so you earned his tip.
So it was the tipping point that we knew that we have only, I don't know how many.
At that point, we still, it's like, so there's, including the 14ers, there's like, well, okay, with LiDAR has changed things a little bit here and there, but we're talking like 630-ish 14ers and 13ers. And so we were probably at a point where we had about 100 or so peaks left. You kind of get down to all these remote San Juan peaks that are like class 3s and stuff. And
you need to backpack.
You need to backpack. You need to scramble.
But we kind of teamed up with our friends, and it was at that point that it's great to have a good friend with you, and then you just kind of combine the lists. And thanks to List of John, you can see who has the same peaks like you, and you can have a good time doing that. So it would be like the memorable mountains, like Peak 15 was with our friends that we really appreciated to have company, and several others.
Yeah.
So what is your 13er finisher? What's the final peak that you guys picked to top the list?
The way the lists work for us is that we don't choose the peak chooses us. We really admire our friends that have finished the 13ers that have left like a nice class 1 13.
Yeah, like a plum one that everybody can go, you know,
exactly,
like
and invite your grandparents along, and exactly. It's you know, so we did those class 1 peaks on our available Fridays.
All the low-hanging fruit was gone.
No low-hanging fruit for us. I mean, it's down to everything is class 3 and class 4 or private. You know, there are a couple of those out there too that we struggled with. And so the one that we left for last, or that chose us for last, is Peak 9 in the Weminuche Wilderness area. Yeah. We had done a climb where we had done like Peak 7 and Silex and Guardian, you know, around Peak 9. And the whole time Peak 9 is going like, you're not going to climb us today. And it's really more Renata and I just cowering in our shoes going like, Peak 9, you know, it's beyond our ability.
With the friends that didn't want it, you know, it was already like week-long vacation. So the smarter climbers, you know, they're just like, oh, there's Peak 9. Let's just do that with Peak 7, and they combine very well.
they don't orphan it like that, but you had orphaned it. So
we've orphaned almost everything. So we have our efficient friends, and then we're like the inefficient friends. So we're kind of the ones that get down to the point like, well, if we can climb like 1 peak in a weekend, I guess we're good to go.
Well, it's kind of the downside of List of John, that you can see the tracks of other people that are combining like so many mountains in a day. So based on knowing the name, we know that we need to divide the track in like 2 or 3 that we kind of accomplish what they are doing.
Yeah, we relied heavily on GPX tracks from List of John.
Which is now, like when we first started, we didn't have a GPS. So that's kind of the nice. And from the friends that we were getting the quads and having like mountains circled and crossing them. So John still did that.
Yeah. When we first met, until about 2007, we didn't use a GPS at all. So we have a pretty healthy sense of direction and map and compass skills and things like that.
I still don't use a GPS.
Good for you.
But I'm not doing a lot of those 13ers you guys are doing. Are once you get into class 3, class 4, 5 terrain, there's very particular routes that you need to pick along those.
Yeah, you're right. It becomes a lot harder logistically to get to the summit for those of us that can't just free climb class 5 wherever we want to,
But the balance is healthy. Going without GPS and picking the route naturally, it kind of is a skill that we all need. So it's kind of it's a good balance. Like you actually have many tracks that you don't want to follow because people just don't have a confidence to post the track, but it kind of consists like bad border field, or they are able maybe technically to climb something harder, or
they don't care if all their clothes rip off from the brush and stuff like that.
Sometimes the route they took isn't the route they should have taken.
Exactly.
So out of all of that, I mean, you guys at that point, you make it to the top of Peak 9. Like we said, we can't cover all 634 of them, but
sure.
Do you guys have not necessarily favorites? Well, we may get to that too, but just some stories about any of those 13ers or 14ers, just experiences that really stood out to you guys.
We have many stories. I kind of pride myself almost that like you could almost name like any of the peaks above 13,000 feet and we can tell you a story about it. Of course, if you pick out something like unnamed 13.3 something, I might not know exactly what you're talking about, but there's definitely many stories. We've had stories from animal encounters to
events.
I
don't know, like let's see, like starting with the 14ers. So when I first arrived to Colorado, I was kind of thinking we can climb the mountains also in a winter, that it's possible. But in a winter, it's quite cold, so it was kind of challenging to get up, I don't know, Mount Antero, other mountains that we did in a winter. But we did go up, for example, Blanca Peak in May, and that was...
still a lot of snow.
Yeah, I was discovering that the snowshoes are really needed. So we were kind of like going up with the snowshoes, and John is kind of little bit heavier than me, actually twice as much.
Yeah. Snowing with Renata, when she's the lead snowshoer, she goes in about 6 inches. And
she's like floating on top, right?
Exactly. I come in, and so even if she's first, I'm going to go down another 2 feet or so, So anyway, so when we're climbing Blanca Peak, like I'm getting pretty exhausted because basically even though we backpacked into Como Lake and did kind of a winter camp or whatever, going up from there was fairly exhausting. And we got to a point where there's like wumping noises, I think, and we're a little nervous about potential avalanche danger, that there's enough snow.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of questioning the sanity of climbing Blanca and packing out and going to work the next day and stuff like that.
And John is suffering behind me.
And I'm suffering behind her.
So I stop and then offer her lunch.
Yeah, Renata offers the lunch to me, and I forget exactly how it transpired, but I managed to launch the lunch pail down the hillside. And so the lunch pail goes down about 200 feet, and that pretty much eliminated our food source.
It was kind of like good reason for turning around.
I was like, so we fail. We're not perfect climbers. We've turned around many times on, situations.
Well, especially if you lose your lunch, man. No, we're not. We're done at that point.
I'll tell you another 14er story that stands out. It's kind of similar as this one. It was also in May. We had backpacked in, we climbed Oxford and Belford one night, and then we camped out, and it was just like a gorgeous May weekend. And we slept in a little bit because we're pretty tired from packing in, setting up camp, and climbing Oxford and Belford. And we're camped in the valley between Missouri and Belford.
Yep.
And by the time we get going on Missouri, the sun is already hitting the slopes, and we start going up Missouri, and every 100 feet that we're going up from like bald spot to bald spot on the hillside, but otherwise it's totally snow covered hillside. And the snow starts wumping more and more. We're going up, and we're kind of like, this has kind of gone from being like cute and innocent to like pretty darn scary, because you don't want to be caught in an avalanche.
Yeah, I didn't know about those conditions in Colorado, so it was again like a big learning that
and so again with Renata's weight, she was able to stay afloat, so she'd be in front of me and she'd be able to go from bald spot to bald spot without even making the snow wump. And then when I would follow her, I would like break through all the way down to the tundra about 2 feet, and I would release like this air pocket. The snow would like lump around us, and kind of knew that we shouldn't be where we were. But I kind of felt like when we're on the bald spots, we were on a ridge where the snow would not take us down. It would just simply go off to the side of the mountain. And sure enough, one of the whumps that caused the whole right side of the climber side of the mountain to just go down. And so like there's this big avalanche, and we're like, okay, that answered the question. We're going down. This is totally unsafe. When you're there after seeing the avalanche go down, you're thinking that it must have been like the whole gigantic hillside of Missouri has collapsed. But when we turn around and we start going down the hillside and you're looking back at the avalanche, you only see this like small square of what actually collapsed. It wasn't, the gigantic hillside that you were thinking of. But even that little bit of snow, if it had swallowed you or buried you,
you'd be done.
You'd be done. And so that was kind of part of our learning experience. Some of it is the hard way, but thankfully we were able to learn those lessons without hurting ourselves or anybody else.
Yeah, without having really serious consequences attached to it, right?
Yeah, exactly. As you can tell from the way we talk, I think we're pretty safety conscious. I mean,
other than setting off avalanches.
Yeah, it was not.
You need to test the limits.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, we test the limits without going over the limit.
Yeah. Do you guys have favorite areas that you like to go to, or favorite peaks, or places that are truly special, other than, of course, the peaks that are kind of implicated in your love story and your marriage?
Yeah. I used to like a lot Rocky Mountain National Park, the area like McHenry's.
McHenry's.
That was kind of beautiful,
13er.
And even like Indian Peaks, but it becomes more logistically complicated with the national park and
reservations
near, because it's close to border, so more people, front range, kind of everything is.
I think we really like variety also. So we've never really been into like finishing a list or finishing a county or finishing an area. We kind of like the variety. We like to go Elks, San Juans, Saguache, Rocky Mountain National Park. And then we like to go to like Utah and go do like a desert peak or something like that. And we like to visit friends. We have friends in the Western Slope, so we'll go to Grand Junction, Gunnison, stuff like that, visit somebody and do a hike.
Yeah, definitely. Like some places are very, aesthetically like that. When you go next weekend to Utah, so it is kind of completely different to see the Navajos sandstone or some little mountains, like even in Arizona or New Mexico. Like it's such a beautiful like jewel that nobody really goes, especially when there is no trail. So kind of like bushwalking, but many beautiful places around us.
Yeah. Well, along with that, I mean, you kind of mentioned it, along with doing all these Colorado hikes, you're also still doing state high points all along the way. Like, are there any cool stories from doing the state high points? You went to Black Mesa in Oklahoma, I know, and clearly you did the ones in South Dakota and North Dakota.
Yeah.
Some fun stories from doing state high point.
The most recent story here is that the high point of Michigan has just changed.
Yeah.
So we had climbed Mount Arvon, I don't know, like 3 years ago, and just found out that that is now 6 inches lower than Mount Kerwood.
Yep.
And so someone was kind of joking with us that, so we've climbed 49 out of 50 state high points, having failed on Denali in Alaska. And Denali is, I'd say, it's not beyond our ability. It's just, we don't want to go through that level of suffering in order to get one more peak in again. I think we're definitely physically able to do it, but it does a lot of work. And then with, say, like Michigan, I don't know if it's not going to be a priority to drive 1,500 miles or whatever it is to Michigan in order to climb Mount Kerwood, unless we can combine it with some other thing. So it'll be in the back of our mind for a future project where we combine it with visiting other friends or other mountains or something like that on the way.
Whenever the peak is a little bit more challenging. So, for example, like Gannett Peak would be like such a long approach that you remember it, and it was surprising things like amount of mosquitoes that can kind of prohibit you from
heavy flooding also in early July.
In early July, like kind of the creeks that you are happy that you have a rope because you need to rope up for the stream crossings. And finally, like when the mountain appears, so you are kind of like relieved that you can climb without having those mosquito company and that you can just concentrate on a beautiful mountain climb.
One of the great things with doing the state high points is that it gives you access to like every nook of the United States. And that was really important with our relationship as far as learning English for Renata. So say, for example, before we did like a trip to go to like the Florida and Alabama and Mississippi state high points, Renata and we sat down and we'd watch the movie My Cousin Vinny. And we like, this is a little bit of the accent that we might be listening to when we go to the Southeast. And then we flew into Atlanta and did like a road trip through the Southeast and visited those state high points, and Renata could experience like the language, the culture, the food, and just kind of compare. And it was kind of new for me also as far as how different it is than Colorado, and having grown up in like New Jersey and Chicago. I mean, I always knew that like Chicago was different from New Jersey, which is different from Colorado.
Yeah, what's the banjo song?
Oh gosh, so for the Georgia State High Point, we watched Deliverance. So
now that's in the Ozarks. Let's just be clear, but what a terrible movie to watch. To like, but God, I hope nothing like that happened.
Like for learning accents. And I think there was like a
Fargo for North Dakota, and
right
like
there you go.
Just a little bit of samples, and
as I mentioned, like it's really great for camping everywhere, kind of freely. And I love it in Colorado, in many other states. But the encounters with grizzlies are still for me. Like we did
Frank's
go
Peak,
on Frank's Peak,
which is a 13er in northwestern Wyoming.
Yeah.
It might be one of your rapid fire questions. What's your biggest animal encounter? But that was a pretty major one.
So what's your biggest animal encounter?
that was probably it.
It was a grizzly, but not one, but three.
Several of them. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a mountain that is famous for. It's a grizzly preserve.
You go there and so like the local people will say like, if you're going to go climb Frank's Peak, you need to bring more than just bear spray. You need to have like a firearm with you,
like a shotgun with a slug.
And they tell you like stories from the last week and last month.
Someone was attacked by a grizzly, and guy had like the bear was biting his head, and had to shoot him to get him off of him or something like that. And Renata and I, we don't carry firearms, not our style. We kind of employed the noise making method. So we're usually pretty quiet when we hike, but Renata's there like banging a tin can and singing more than I've ever heard her sing before.
Playing a banjo like in Georgia, right?
It was kind of scary. You get to the trailhead. So the trailhead, you're already four-wheeling for like an hour out of the middle of nowhere. And at the trailhead, there's a sign that says, you should only hike beyond this sign if you have at least 3 people. In addition to bear spray, you should also have a firearm for protection. And Renata and I are there with like just the 2 of us, nobody else around. And we only had bear spray and our noise making stuff.
I think it was expired bear spray.
The bear spray was expired from Alaska a couple years earlier or something.
I never know how to use those things.
And we never want to use it either.
I'm sure that I would kind of like spray in the wrong direction.
So I did the polite husbandly thing, and I walked first on the trail. And as you're walking up the trail, you see all this like scratching. You can see where the grizzly bears have been digging for whatever grubs or whatever that they like.
Flipping over trees and doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah. and around a corner, nothing but this gigantic grizzly bear's butt hightailing it to the other side of the hillside, so it was good that like our noise actually freaked out a bear. So they knew we were coming, and this bear, they don't want to just kill humans, they want to protect themselves, and they don't have to attack us in order to protect themselves. They can actually run and eat elsewhere. And so that's what this one did. And then as we were going towards the summit, we saw another like mother and her cub, but thankfully, she heard us from a ways away. She didn't need to hightail it, but she was just far enough away that she just kind of casually walked with her cub off the hillside. And
the summit register has kind of like, we did see 8 bears today.
Yeah. 5 bears. How many bears did you see today? So that would be a major experience out of state.
I mean, I backpacked in Alaska when I was a late teenager, and what they told us there is, if you can see it, you're way too close, right? Like,
yes, exactly. I've only had one mountain lion encounter in Colorado. I've had 2. So most of the time, you can never see a mountain lion. There was one time I was hiking in Colorado National Monument by Grand Junction. I'd visit my parents like at Thanksgiving time. This is before Renata. And my parents like dropped me off at the top of No Thoroughfare Canyon.
It was maybe snow covered.
And there's like an inch of fresh snow. And I was just doing like a one-way hike down No Thoroughfare Canyon. And so after my parents dropped me off, I'm going down, and suddenly there's like mountain lion tracks in the snow, fresh mountain lion tracks that were going up the canyon and then went up to the side and went around me. And I was like, there's a mountain lion that totally knows that I am down here.
Yeah.
By the time I saw this mountain lion's tracks, that mountain lion is already long gone, and it could have eaten me if it wanted to or whatever. I just had trekking poles or whatever. But it kind of goes to show that a big hiker guy is not tops on their food chain. It's also a good wake-up call to be aware of there's wildlife out there that knows that you're there, even if you don't know that they're there.
You needed Renata's glockenspiel there to be banging on.
Her flugelhorn.
Yeah.
With the animals, like I remember also that we backpacking, that people teach you like techniques how to make a space in your tent. So good idea, like you should hang your like backpack on a tree, like you kind of like attach it perfect. And I remember doing it when we were going actually climb like a jagged peak with a friend in San Juan Mountains in Veminuch. And in the morning, like 5 a.m., I wake up and kind of go out for, using restroom maybe and preparing for the hike. And then look on my backpack, and there is porcupine sitting like on it and kind of like eating the stuff. So, not like there is many stories with maybe marmots and other animals, but this was kind of like every time you need to adjust the advices for whatever works. Yeah.
Oh, I've had that before where I hung it so deliberately, and then I go and then I check it in the morning and there's like a squirrel inside of it, and I'm like, dang it. Like, could seal that up a little better. Yeah.
So one thing that Zach and I always like to ask each other when it comes to the mountains is we're very music minded. So one of our favorite questions is if hiking the mountains was a song, or one of your favorite mountain experiences was a song, what song would it be? So I would love to hear from each of you, John and Renata. What song would that be if you were to choose one?
So you will be the first.
I probably have a better answer than Renata. We were talking about that this morning. Renata really, her musical preferences are check. And I was trying to answer the question for her, and I'll let her talk later. But out of many songs, like I decided to choose Two of Us by the Beatles, which has the very good line that you and I have memories longer than the road that stretches out ahead. Which to me is like a very thought-provoking line from a song. And of course, I'm not going to sing it because I don't sing very well. But the other words from the song, are like, we're on our way home. And I was singing that the entire time that we're coming down from some horrible weather in Nepal just last month. And for 3 days, that was my mantra in Nepal, even though we were nowhere near home, but we were on our way home. And I felt that pretty much like my whole life. For example, when I was in New Jersey, I graduated from high school, and like 3 days after I graduated from high school, I moved out to Colorado. And at that time, it was not necessarily we're on our way home. It was I'm on my way home. And so there's lots of other songs that are like Homeward Bound by Simon and Garfunkel. So I listened to all of that kind of music that I had compiled on a tape. And like when I was coming into Colorado from Nebraska, driving on Highway 76, it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was just like dawn was just breaking. You could still see the stars, and across my front windshield, there's like a shooting star that went by. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing like God telling you that you have made the right decision in your life. You know, as much as I love my friends from New Jersey and the childhood I had there, when I was coming into Colorado, it was like I definitely discovered myself, and I was definitely on my way home. So,
oh man, that's so good, John. Renata, you are free to give us a Czech folk song if you want to.
No. I'm climbing and songs is more personalized for the mountain. So it will be maybe something that I did here on the drive there, or what I was listening to the day before, and it stuck in my head, and then it is good for my rhythm, mindset, and I should say like when there is class 3, class 4, so I think I stop singing and I need to fully concentrate on the mountains. But I did a lot of like slideshows and presentations in Czech Republic, and when I'm traveling kind of for friends. I think I was using John Denver's The Rocky Mountain Highs as a kind of classic if I bring it back to Colorado. So that would be the song that I like, and that I use it for mountains, changing scenery when I
good
make
choice.
a presentation.
Yeah.
John Denver sings a lot about homecoming too, right? Like that sense of being at home in the mountains. Rocky Mountain High is part of that, but Starwood and Aspen, and there's all kinds of songs that are kind of fit in with that.
Yes, that was the easiest that I can come up with.
That's great. That's awesome. You guys have been so positive and so good, and I don't know if I want to end it on this note or include this, but do you guys have a least favorite experience? My wife reminded me just yesterday, she's like, we were talking about DeCalibron and how I just was like kind of derisive towards Cameron. Like you just kind of walk over it, but you guys have done so much hiking. Is there something that stands out as like, man, I don't know about that?
We were discussing this morning also, because like, we also don't want to end on a negative note at all. Absolutely. Because we've had so many positive experiences in the mountains, but just like the animal encounters and stuff like that, things can go a little bit not the way you were expecting. One of the other things that I was kind of wondering about too, that this might also be like, say, like the weirdest thing that can happen in a mountain, but I had an experience where Renata and we climbed Turner Peak, which is a 13er by Cottonwood Pass, and then there's some unnamed 12ers nearby. And when we were heading up after Turner Peak, we went towards the 12er, and we encountered, quite surprisingly, like 3 hunters in like a foxhole kind of just below the summit of the 12er, and they were none too happy about our presence while we were going up the 12er, and they kind of let us know their dissatisfaction because I guess they were hunting sheep and they were trying to be quiet. Of course, they were not expecting anybody to be walking by. So it was one of the very few negative experiences that we've had with hunters. The vast majority of hunters that we have encountered on our hikes are the most wonderful people, very safety conscious, wearing usually orange and things like that. And they care for the well-being of anybody else. And they're also aware of the strange situations that can happen with hikers that are not necessarily there hunting also. The strange thing about that experience too was when we're coming back, we had to reclimb Turner Peak to go back to our car. And as we're heading back towards Turner Peak, someone's on top of Turner Peak and they yell down, "John, Renata." And so after the strange encounter with hunters, and we're going kind of a little bit shell-shocked towards our car, and someone had climbed Turner Peak that day that saw our names in the register and knew that it was us. And,
Wow.
and it ended up being a friend of ours. And he said, hey, I'm parked down at the trailhead for Yale. And he invited us to hike with him down to his car. And then he drove us up to Cottonwood Pass to take us back to our car. And so we ended up having like a one-way shuttle hike that we were totally not expecting that day. So that was something that seemed negative, but was also a very positive.
Even a silver lining to that cloud, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I will add, we were kind of like, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe a little more, we were training for climbing in Washington State, and we wanted to have a kind of snow camping experience. So we decided to go on Mount Humboldt and take the ridge. And it was a lot of snow, literally in April, I guess, we would be going kind of like in a deep snow on the ridge. And then in one point, we decided to pitch a tent, which not too many people would do. And actually, those days, people are also climbing 14ers more in just the calendar winter time and not the other time. So next day we go and we decide to kind of early morning pack on the mountain. And I discovered that my camera is not working. So I was like, oh, that's too bad. I will leave it behind. It was kind of like, the
digital camera.
Yeah, digital kind of big camera. And then we are climbing. It's windy, everything that we expected. We summited, go down. And then as we are going down, so we discovered that there is kind of closer to where we have a tent, there is suddenly somebody that must be going also up. And we do see he left poles.
Broken trekking poles.
So we grab it as a garbage, and then they thrown away a water bottle, and we take it as a garbage and then proceed toward our tent. And then we see there are trucks going inside, and we are like, well, that's kind of strange. And we go to the tent, and the tent has sort of everything, but my camera is missing. So it was kind of surprising, and we hike out. And then I'm not a big poster on 14ers.com, but I was kind of disappointed, and I was telling the story because I was feeling 15 years ago when I came to Colorado, I would never expect. It was kind of just selection of a nice people in the mountains, and nobody would steer anything.
Everyone's very ethical in the mountains.
Yeah. So I got answers, and it was kind of interesting that it was somebody that people pointed me out that somebody posted a trip report about failing on Humboldt, and they posted photos. So I have a photo of a person that did steal my camera, because it was probably two people that didn't know each other. One of them posted a trip report, and as they failed, there was one person that was really frustrated because they needed to turn around. They didn't have a snowshoes, and they on the way down, as a vengeance, or I don't know, he was kind of taking my non-functioning camera as a souvenir. So that was nice.
Kind of a strange experience, but I guess the lesson, 99.9% of people out there are totally ethical, but there are people occasionally, for one reason or another, do things that are inappropriate. And so it's good to be aware of that.
Yeah, so giving good examples to others, help each other.
Always help each other if you can.
Yeah, right.
And if we fail, we need to get more stronger or bring the correct gears.
I want to end on a positive note here. Yeah. Do you guys have any words of wisdom or just summary of your hiking lives together? Just what a beautiful story you guys have together, and all the hikes that you've done. Anything that you guys want to leave our listeners with?
I would say, on a similar vein of what we've been saying earlier, is to make sure that you get the level of training that you need. I highly recommend volunteering or taking classes from the Colorado Mountain Club. Don't be afraid to test your limits to a certain extent, but also don't be afraid to turn around, meet like-minded friends that you can go with. I know people can be so strong and fast and gain a level of experience when they go solo that's incredible, but it's really more enjoyable to me since I've been with partners and friends in the mountains.
Yeah, definitively. Like we succeeded on many mountains thanks to the friend that we have and helped us overcome the obstacles. And yeah, I think appreciation belongs to all guidebooks, to everybody that was pioneer in the mountains. That starts with maybe mining, that there are like the access to the places that we would not be able to access otherwise. Yeah, how to end up on a positive note.
Glad I'm not doing this interview in Czech because I would be stumbling also because
in French or in Spanish or in German.
Renata knows her languages.
I think you guys said it. So many of your hikes, you mentioned you guys have hiked with so many different people in so many different groups. There's a sense of real togetherness that you guys have. Clearly, you guys are loved by other people and that you love each other and that you guys do this. It's so cool. Ending on that note of gratitude, Renata, I think is great. So can't thank you guys enough for coming on here and telling us your stories and telling us your beautiful tale of how you found each other. It feels like a Valentine's Day podcast. This has been such a sweet story to talk about.
That's maybe how it will be happening.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate your guys' friendship, and we do hope that we'll be able to hike with you guys someday when you find time to get away from your family long enough to go climb a new peak or something like that.
Yeah. Can't thank you guys enough. This has been great.
You two are gems. This is wonderful. Thank you for sharing your time with us, your stories. This has been a lot of fun. You guys are awesome.
Thank you very much, guys.
Well, Zach, that was a fun and enlightening chat with our new friends, John and Renata Collard. What are your thoughts?
Oh, man, I've got a ton of thoughts. Before I get to my thoughts, I kind of popped a question onto John and Renata at the end of the interview there about, what they find interesting, compelling, motivating about mountaineering, hiking. Renata sent an email afterwards and she kind of added some thoughts to that. I don't know if it fully came out in our interview. We had chatted with them before our interview. Renata had done some research in the Andes. Yeah. And she sent an email, said the thought that she was really kind of striving for there was this idea that people in the Andes think that mountains are alive, that they're guides for us, that hiking to her is a kind of connection. It's our way of connecting to these mountains that connect us to our ancestors, to the earth and the sky. Additionally, for us to learn about ourselves and create stories and memories. She's kind of probing around that, and in interacting with her, because Renata's from Europe and can kind of connect with this idea, to me it sounded a lot like the idea of spirit, which is spirit is a connection to something greater than yourself as well. And I really like that. Maybe it's because I'm a religious studies person, but I'm always intrigued by the spiritual motivations of hikers. Jerry Roach wrote a book called Transcendent Summits, and for him, I think a number of summits are religious experiences. And I think Renata was kind of getting at that kind of sense of connection, and mountains hold a sacred place in that sense of connection. So I just wanted to kind of let her speak a little bit more before I entered in my own thoughts. But anytime you get to talk to people that have done way more than you or I will ever do, probably combined, it's humbling. But I am continually struck by the kindness. We've now interviewed 3 climbing couples, the Roaches, the Coonies and the Collards, and I'm struck by always how kind they are, how open they are, how gracious they are. They maintain communication with us after we do the interview. Like, it's not like they're one and done. They're like, hey, you guys are all right. I just thought they were great. I love their love story. I love the songs that they picked out. I think hiking does something to the soul that softens you up and makes you, for lack of a better term, a better person. And boy, does it show when we talk to people like that.
Sure.
Your thoughts, Eric?
Yeah, I love everything you just said. And I'm continuously struck by it too. Like, everything they've accomplished, there are certain things that have such a high level of risk that, they've summited Lizard Head, they've summited Little Bear and Jagged. And like you said, all these things that I'll never, ever do.
Dallas
never even
Peak.
think of doing. Dallas, like all these peaks that are just rife with potential danger, and there's so much risk involved in some of these things that they've accomplished, yet they can also sit down with us and exude kindness and warmth. There's no cowboy mentality.
I actually think they're able to sit down and be kind and gentle and open because they've done those things.
That
Be-
must be because it
because
keeps happening.
I think there's something to the fact that when people are able to push themselves physically, mentally, spiritually in that way, it gives them a more expansive sense of who they are and a more expansive sense of how big the world is. There's a kind of humility there. They know that they're not bigger than the mountain. They know that they're not bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
And I really do think there's something to the fact that there's a kind of spiritual preparation that you undergo when you just hike a lot like they do. I mean, you think about that determination, getting up every 5 days and beating the crap out of yourself to go up a mountain. That does something to you. John and Renata are just absolutely great human beings, and I think it shows.
Yep. That's a great way of saying it. There's that connection there, and it results in the conversation we had with them. They're super down to earth, really humble, really kind people. In an email afterwards, you mentioned that they don't just, drop us after talking with us for a couple hours. They refer to us as their friends. Who does he consider friends? A couple of doofuses that, haven't accomplished a fraction of what he and Renata have done. So yeah, just really impressed all around. Love them. They were wonderful to talk with.
I think we can end with one other thing. For those of you that haven't picked up your 2026 Colorado 14ers calendar, go do so. And if you already have, or if you get it, flip to the month of June, and there you'll see a lovely, elegant, well-composed picture of Ellingwood Ridge by Renata Collard. So it's really cool. Christmas Day, I opened up my 14ers calendar and I was like, hey, I know that person. I've talked to her. She's awesome. And it elicited a pretty cool conversation with my family about talking to this woman that grew up in Czechoslovakia and immigrated to the U.S. And her story is great. So make sure you guys do that. I wish we could do this all the time. We should also say sorry, I lied. That wasn't the last thing. Speaking of the kindness of the people we talk to, the reason we've been able to talk to the Roaches and the Collards is because Tim and Carrie Cooney have connected us with all these people. So shout out again to Tim and Carrie, who are just absolutely first-rate human beings.
Yep, absolutely. All three of those couples are fantastic. We've been really fortunate to speak to all of them. And yeah, Tim, Carrie, thank you for the connection to the Roaches and to the Collards and just all of the fun conversations we've been able to have because of you guys. So thank you.
Well, we thank you guys for listening. And if you guys want to get a hold of us, you can do it at all the usual means. greensandbluespodcast@gmail.com, greensandbluespodcast.podbean.com, where you'll have access to our Facebook, our YouTube, all of our episodes, and a few other little goodies. You can leave a voicemail on that website. I wish you would do so. Otherwise, Charles Barkley's going to make another phone call into the pod.
Can we have both?
Well, ideally, yes. I think so, Eric.
That's like perfect world situation.
Indeed. We thank all you guys for listening, and we will catch you guys next time.
We'll look forward to your next podcast.
Oh, this will definitely be the most serious podcast we put out in a while because we're a couple dingbats these days. But,
seriously.